Let's talk about Wisconsin and Graham Mertz, and as you mentioned, many staff members, including the head coach, having COVID-19. The game with Nebraska has been canceled, right? It's not it's not going to be like the NFL where they're going to add a week on at the end, right? If you don't play it, it's finished.
Yeah, and Rich, it's not like there's other conferences who've had, we've had to make it's not really semantics, but to say, oh, that game's been postponed. Well, these games in the Big Ten are getting canceled because there was no margin for error, no wiggle room in the schedule, just because it's all crammed in because they ended up with a later starting date, obviously October 24th, and now they're trying to get teams, hopefully for their sake, to get as many games as possible in, so then they hope that their champion could be measured accordingly with the CFP, who's going to probably have some other teams that may have more games, right? So we'll see how this plays out. I don't, it's a stretch to probably think Wisconsin's the only Big Ten program that's going to have to deal with some of these issues. Now, they do not have some of the same protocols as the other conferences who have this 53-man roster kind of threshold. There are different thresholds they have in here, but this was a Wisconsin determination. And keep in mind, unlike Clemson right now, where it's only Trevor Lawrence in the quarterback who's tested positive, you had the guy who was the starter before Graham Mertz, Jack Cohen, is dealing with a foot injury. He's out. So then you have Graham Mertz test positive. You had Chase Wolf, the third-string quarterback, test positive. Right now, they would be down to their fourth-string quarterback. And because of the minimum 21-day period that is on players if you test positive, and again, it's a minimum, not a maximum, that they're going to be having their fourth-string quarterback. Even if they can play next week against Purdue, then it's likely to be Danny Vanden before they have to run the offense.
Well, what are you hearing about a movement of foot potentially, Bruce, that in the same way that the Big Ten said, well, our initial decision to not play at all this fall was changed based on testing, advances in testing and understanding the science a little better, that the protocol to keep a kid out 21 days if they test positive, that can be changed because now there's a different way to approach somebody who has COVID-19. Is there a movement afoot to try and loosen those restrictions, the 21-day?
Right now, Rich, there's been some chatter about it, and I'm not sure it's been that much more than that. SI.com had an interesting story 2 days ago about it. Barry Alvarez, the Wisconsin AD, was quoted in it, and Barry Alvarez is a very influential figure. And look, let's be honest, Barry Alvarez's program is the one who is right now most in the crosshairs of this kind of discussion. So, when I had talked to people a week ago about this and the testing out process and some of the other things, also when it comes to, I had heard from some programs in the Big Ten, said they were dealing with a bunch of false positives and what that led to. So I think there's a lot of discussion, I would call it chatter. When I had reached out to some higher up folks in the Big Ten, I did not get that they were gonna pull back on what they'd already put in place. And when I asked Paul Christ on Monday about their stricter protocols in other conferences, he told me he was comfortable with it because they were part of the discussions, and that's what the doctors and the experts and the chancellors and the presidents had agreed to in order for them to play. So we'll see where this goes. I mean, it's definitely something we're going to monitor to see if there's more movement on it, but at this point, it's just kind of a talking point.